Good afternoon, everybody. I'd just like to obviously take this opportunity to welcome Jane from Nihon with us this afternoon. And we just want to present to you today the new defibrillator that we're actually going to be placing on site from, well, it'll be next month, the next few weeks, we'll start the rollout. This is quite obviously a big change, so we thought we'd actually introduce it to the Trust this way as one of the deployment exercises that we're currently undertaking. So I'll leave to Jane to actually introduce herself and actually start off with actually about the new defibrillator.
Hi, I'm Jane Hampson from Nihon Kohden. I'm the account manager for the North. So yes, we're hopefully rolling out these devices soon in the coming weeks, the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I thought it'd be good just to give you an overview and a little bit more insight into the actual device. Okay, what you can see is quite a new model. I think it came out in 2017. Very user friendly and easy to receive some really good feedback. And basically, it's about improving the quality of resuscitation. That's what we all want for the patients and the outcome. Okay, that's it.
Okay, so this current model of defib, and obviously it's with the latest technology, things have moved on significantly since the current defibrillator that we have in the Trust at the moment, the LifePak 20. Mainly in regards to actually underlying technology with regards to which we're going to go through with filtering of the ECG trace, and also the most important thing is actually the time to shock. There's a number of things that will be changing, but that just gives you an idea of some of the things that are currently in the market that we do there. The LifePak, as I say, currently at the moment, it does deliver up to 200 joules in roughly 4 seconds, but when we go up to 360, it can take up to 10 seconds in some times, so it is quite a significant period of time. Whereas the new, obviously, defibrillators that we've got there, as you can see there, on battery or AC power, we're actually being ready to deliver the shock within about 4 seconds there. Obviously, as you all know, through resuscitation training, obviously the research that's been done, there's many articles that have been published about actually the chances of successful defibrillation and the time it takes to deliver that shock. And every minute that goes by that we know from all research, and it's only repeated over many papers, that we get a 7% reduction in survival successful defibrillation after every minute goes by. So seconds do mean that they make a big difference. The other thing as well with this particular, although we're not looking at fast shock delivery, there's also looking at fast recovery after a shock as well. Currently, we have quite a longish post-shock pause before you can actually see what the underlying rhythm is. Well, although as part of the ALS guidelines, of course, we would start CPR straight away again. The monitor does recover quite quickly. And with these new technology that we're actually implementing on site, is actually really important because it filters the pads actually filter out any artifacts or any chest compressions that you do, so you very quickly can actually see an underlying rhythm that will be there. Of course, the current defibs we're using are biphasic, and that the new defibs are quite basic as well. Every manufacturer has its own version of biphasic waveforms. There's nothing particularly different about this one, apart from the way that the shape of the curve is actually focused on actually providing the majority of the current to the myocardium, which is the successful part that we're looking for. It's not actually energy we're looking for, it's actually the current is delivered to the myocardium. And this active biphasic actually delivers the maximum current to the heart as quickly as possible. The current is delivered within that 20-second millisecond time, because again, if it's a prolonged pulse, then the effect is actually notably reduced. Now, obviously, we need to minimise pauses during CPR. Now, current 2021 guidelines talk about maximum pauses of chest compressions when you're looking at analysing whether it's manual or AD. It should be less than 5 seconds. Now, currently, the AD we have now is approximately 10 to 12 seconds, which is obviously, because it's an old technology, it is outside of the guidelines. And of course, the new technology means that we can actually have obviously very quick off chest times. In fact, the new AD mode is so fast that in fact the first shock delivered, it doesn't give very little time to actually come off the chest. As we are doing compressions, it has continuous analysis there to do these artifact suppressing paths. So actually it starts to charge before actually you've actually stopped the. So this is just a little bit of a slide here which looks at conventional ADs against continuous analysis of PF. So as you can see, the top part of the slide there, CPR is ongoing, and then we have to stop analysing, and then obviously a shock will be advised. The defib will charge, obviously it will advise a shock to the patients, and then we start CPR again. Now this conventional AD actually does introduce delay, which obviously seconds do matter to the myocardium. So this new device actually does have continuous monitoring, so CPR can be analysed. They have to realise what the heart rhythm can be analysed whilst chest pressures is ongoing, which is obviously highly beneficial for a chance of shock time. The delays are really short, and obviously when we have face-to-face training with you will actually see this in action, and it's less than the sort of 2 seconds from stopping to actually ready for defibrillation in the AED mode. This is an example of the new pads that we'll be using. As you can see on the left of the machine, left of the screen, with conventional pads there, you can see artifacts introduced from chest compressions. And on the right is the new artifact suppressing pads, which are obviously the pads that we'll be using with the machine, and you can clearly see the underlying ECG trace. We will still have to stop to actually assess, but it'll be a very short pause before we can actually recommence as per guidelines there, but you will be able to see the underlying rhythm, which I think is a really useful development.
And in the pads, you're just going to have one set of pads for both paediatrics and adults, and they will be attached to the defibrillator. So
it's also as part of the checking procedure in the machine. It does self-check itself, so there's no need to do any manual checks, and it does check the pad's integrity as well as doing for these pads. We're also going to be having end-tidal CO2 on every single machine, as well as pacing on every single machine, which is again a significant development. The end-tidal CO2, obviously, it's been around for a long time, as we know, but it's since 2015 guidelines, it's actually been mandated by the RCUK that every cardiac arrest should be available, particularly when obviously age-related patients. Well, we know, of course, it confirms tube placement, gives you the indicator for ROSC, of course. And we know we can monitor. It's the only physiological monitor of measure of quality of CPR, and of course it gives them the guide if it's prolonged, it's persistently low. So should it be as obviously as actually effectively there. The device that is actually attached to the machine, it's a mainstream machine with a small plastic adapter. There is also going to be available some nasal specs that you can use as well if you have any oxygenation and other uses of the machine. But the actual lead there is that it is the world's smallest, lightest. It's 4 grams, it says on the screen there. It's extremely robust. I'm not saying it's indestructible. It is very robust. The one caution I will say with it is a lead. We're looking at somewhere fixing it. If it's lost or damaged or cut in like a trauma, something like whatever you're using it for, it's extremely expensive to replace. So please, obviously, when they go out there, look after those along the machine there. Okay, analysis there. Okay, looking at monitoring arrhythmia analysis, there is also, obviously, it does actually tell you on the screen. It will actually analyse the rhythms for you. Obviously, with any electronic device, it's obviously prone to potential for error, so obviously it doesn't affect the clinician's judgment, but it does give you an indication there. And on the top of the machine, as you can see there is a light, and it will let you have the critical alarms, either red, amber, or blue if everything obviously is within normal parameters. Of course, you can also set as many alarms as you wish, and these will reset themselves back to default when the machine is turned off. This is something which people often find a little bit uncomfortable at times. At the moment, we will not be using this feature, so just to provide reassurance that it is there for the future should we choose to do so. We can actually record events that happens, so the surrounding sound together with the ECG waveforms can be switched on to actually record. We're not using that in communication at the moment. It's potentially future. Okay, this is really, as it is a difference to what we currently use, okay, in regards to the checking of the machine. Currently, the machine checks itself at 3 o'clock every morning, as you know, and as part of the micro checks, it should be checked on a daily basis, and it will print out a rhythm strip or a strip, sorry, and you sign it and date it. This particular machine does not do that, and as you can see on the left of the machine, there's a red and a green little indicator there. The green is obviously it's ready for use, and that's the only check that you need to do. When you turn the machine on, there's another self-check as well. So there is no requirement of this machine to actually to do manual checks, unless you should obviously see a red indicator, and then you can do a basic check, which will show you when we do the face-to-face checking as a training. As those results are a great screen. It's a nice high quality colour screen, and it's very clear to use. So energy settings, it's 1, 2, 3. So we've got 1, 2, 3, which is obviously 2 is to charge the machine, and 3 is to shock. The settings that we've chosen, I'm going to talk about those in a second there, but basically just turn it on, select the energy you require, or AD mode, as you can see there, and then charge and shock in manual mode, or the AD mode there. This is what we have approved through the Trust Resource Group, through discussions with clinicians. They all adhere to RC UK guidelines. As I mentioned previously, the pads are adult ped combined. So for manual defibrillation, as you know now, currently we go from 200, 300, and 360. The current maximum of this machine is 270. So we are going to be starting at 150, 200, and 270, which fits in with the Resource Council guidelines, which state that it should be an initial shock of at least 120 joules and escalate appropriately. The AED will automatically escalate. You do not need any user interface with that involved in that at all. The adult AED mode is exactly the same, and again the defib does it for you. And the PED mode we have we set up to start at 50 joules, then 70, then 100. Now this is actually a new mode. We don't currently have that on WHH machines because obviously we've got old technology. But now there's a paediatric AED mode that we can actually use by just obviously holding the AED button, paediatric AED button, and turn it on. We'll show you that in a second. For synchronized cardioversion, and these all fall in with RC UK guidelines. It is up to clinician choice. If you choose not to use these guidelines, then of course that is your clinician's choice to do so. But obviously you have to have good reason to do that. But these energy settings here are what we're going to recommend throughout WHH. So narrow complex tachycardia is an atrial flutter. It will start at 70 joules, then 200, 270. The broad complex tachycardia is 150, then escalates to 200, then 270, and atrial fibrillation 270, which is they all fit in with the National RC UK Guidelines 2021. We are going to be having some in obviously theatres and ED, so there will be some internal paddles available. We'll also be having a few sets of external traditional hard shell paddles in case of a situation such as burns or trauma to the chest where we can't stick the pads on. So defibrillator overview, Jane can go through this.
Yeah, so it's quite easy to navigate. It's basically colour code. So you can see where the on the slide on my left, the green ECG port. You then have SpO2. You've not decided to go with the SpO2, but as Mark talked about the Cat1 end tidal, that's in the yellow port just below the SpO2. The paper tray, really easy. It's thermal as well, so it will never run out of any ink. Very self-explanatory. Very good sort of quality, and that's not because I work for Nihon Kohden, but the Japanese are very, very well renowned for high quality craftsmanship. But as Mark mentioned before, it's all labelled, the user and the user interface of the defib. And it does actually, there's a menu where it will give you actual instructions of how to apply pads if you needed and how to pace. But yeah, very user friendly, I'd say.
Just a clarification, we will not be having paddles on top of the machine like that. It will just be a therapy cable attached to the machine, so the paddles will not be on the machine currently. But you can quite see on the left hand side you've got all the pacing buttons, and the right hand side there you can see you've got the group indicator for use, you've got the sync button on the top there, and then the energy select, and then 2 to charge and 3 to shock. You can also see there the child shock to child mode there, which you press and hold before you turn the machine on. And there's soft keys at the bottom, which again they do various functions depending on what you press. And you can see quite clearly the ECG, the SpO2, which we're not having SpO2 on any machines in WHH, but we will be all, as I said, all having end-tidal CO2, which trace that you see there.
And the defibrillator will be configured to what's being discussed within the research committee board.
Yeah, that's just the back, obviously showing AC power there, and then that's just there. So all we're having on ours is those two doors, the blue door on there as well. As a screen, obviously, you've got the top trace there, which will actually filter down into two levels. It will default to pads, and obviously you can select which lead you want if you press the lead select button at the bottom there. On the right hand side, you've got the heart rate, and then the bottom we've got the end-tidal CO2. In AED mode, the ETCO2 does still work, but you will not get a waveform trace. You'll just get the figures on the left-hand side there. To remove pads, it's changed to paddles. It's just it's not going to happen very often at all. It's basically you turn the machine off, and then it's a spring-loaded clip which opens the cable. As was mentioned about child mode, as you take the little button at the bottom, as you can see, there's a little finger there pointing at it. It must be pressed and held as you turn the mode on into AED, and then it will say child mode, and then it will obviously be a child-specific pictures on the screen, and child-specific instructions will be on there as well. Again, you can the chart paper, it will print out. Obviously, you can print out rhythm strips as you can see there, but also it will give you all the details about any events that have actually happened throughout the usage, whether it's a cardiac arrest or whether it's a medical emergency. That you want there, it will print out. It will print out reports. Self-testing, as I mentioned before, we don't have to do any tests. It does its own tests automatically. We're going to be proposing to change the current time from 3 in the morning to 6 in the morning, just to allow if there is a problem with the machine, and of course mental engineering can be contacted very quickly shortly afterwards. You see, that's just all the tests that it does on a monthly, daily, and of course on power on, it does do a self-test, and it very quickly just says obviously self-test, and it goes into its operational mode. It also does a test on when you turn it off, so that the indicator will change to red. Obviously, if there is an issue that comes up on itself. Just finally, this is the pads we're going to be having. So the lead on the machine, I think, is 1.8 meters long, and the pads lead is going to be 1.3. So you can see they're sealed in there. It's a case of just ripping on the little notch there, ripping it open, the pads come out, and then just following the pictures. For adult mode, you can see the standard anterolateral pad position there, and for child mode, the EPALS and APLS guidelines do talk about you can use in the anterolateral position should you wish to do so, but sometimes it's better to use AP for use in children. But as soon as the child's chest gets to a size where you can actually stick the pads on without them touching, and of course we tend to go to the anterolateral position. And however, obviously, defibrillation in children is extremely rare that things happen, but of course it may happen. Again, this is just an example of the artifact there. You can see there on the left, a bit of artifact touching the patient. On the right is filtered, so it's a very useful feature to be able to have. Now, we are going to be, when we're actually rolling them out, there will be a Microsoft Forms that will be sent out as well shortly, where you'll be able to self-record, but there's also this QR code, which we stuck onto every machine that we deploy. And again, it's all, if you require it, then of course email myself or Lindsay Appleby. We send it out. You can distribute it in your local team areas. But if you scan that code, you'll find it takes you to a link to Nihon Coding's website, where there are, I think there's 4 instruction videos, very clear, concise videos that are well made, that shows you everything you need to know about the machine itself. So that's the end of our presentation. So obviously we're just looking for are there any questions that may come up?
We don't have any questions yet.